Hi everyone, this is the Nordic Venture Show, your guide to the exciting world of Nordic startups and venture capital. In today's episode, we're exploring a startup called Lucinity.
All right, so AI and fighting financial crime. Get this. We took a deep dive into this company called Lucinity, and let me tell you, they are doing some seriously cool stuff.
What's fascinating about Lucinity is that they're not just like throwing algorithms at the problem, right? They're driven by this mission of making money good.
Making money good. It sounds great.
Yeah.
But what does that actually mean?
Yeah, no, it's about it's about fundamentally shifting how we approach financial systems.
Okay.
Instead of just like chasing after bad actors,
Right.
they're trying to design a system that's sort of inherently more resistant to crime.
So building in safeguards from the ground up rather than just reacting after something bad has happened.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
And a big part of how they're doing that is through this suite of tools they have.
Okay.
Which includes everything from, case management to something called Customer 360. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of Customer 360, but I gotta be honest, it sounds a little bit Big Brother-ish.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming it's more nuanced than that.
It is. It is. It's not about it's not about Big Brother.
Okay.
It's more about, imagine if you could have a complete and holistic view of every customer.
Right.
Their transactions, their risk factors, all in one place. This gives analysts a much, much clearer picture when they're actually assessing potential risks.
Right. So it's less about spying and more about connecting the dots so you can get ahead of any sort of potential issue.
Precisely. Yeah.
Okay.
But, the real star of their show, the one everyone's talking about, is Lucy, their AI copilot.
Okay, let's talk about Lucy.
Yeah.
I've heard it described as you have a super-powered sidekick for financial crime investigations.
Right.
What does that actually look like in practice?
So imagine this. Lucy can analyze massive amounts of data, identify suspicious activity, and even generate detailed reports.
Wow.
All with incredible speed and accuracy.
So we're not just talking about automating data entry here. It's actually making judgment calls based on whether or not something is suspicious.
In a way, but it's more accurate to say that Lucy uses, machine learning to analyze patterns and identify anomalies that might indicate financial crime.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of like
having
a tireless detective working 24/7, just sifting through mountains of data to flag potential issues.
That's incredible. And this is where it gets really interesting to me because I saw in these materials that one of the things that Lucy can do is actually write those super detailed suspicious activity reports, or SARS.
Right.
Yeah, SARS for short.
And those reports are absolutely essential in the fight against financial crime, but they're also incredibly time-consuming and complex to write.
So by automating that, it's not just saving a ton of time and headache, it's freeing them up to actually do the more complex parts of their jobs.
Exactly. Instead of being bogged down in paperwork, they can use their actual expertise to investigate those really nuanced cases that require, human intuition and experience.
So it's not about replacing human analysts. It's about giving them the tools to be way more effective.
Precisely. And you know what?
Right.
It's not even just about the core platform.
Okay.
Right. They've also developed this thing called the Lucy plugin.
Okay. Tell me more about the plugin. Why is the plugin such a big deal?
Well, this means that Lucy's AI power isn't just confined to Lucinity's platform.
Right.
They're making it possible to integrate Lucy into any web-based system.
Hold on. So any bank or financial institution could plug Lucy into their existing systems?
Potentially, yeah.
That's huge. It's a game changer.
Think about the cost and time savings for an industry that's like drowning in data.
Totally. And it gets even more impressive.
More impressive.
They have something called the Lucy Studio, which basically lets you teach Lucy new tricks.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
So I can teach this AI how to do my financial crime fighting for me?
Well, not for you.
Well, yeah.
You can train it to perform very specific tasks tailored to your organization's needs.
Okay, this is getting like a little sci-fi for me.
Yeah.
How much coding experience do I need to, like, teach Lucy how to...
That's the beauty of it.
Okay.
You need zero coding experience.
Really?
It's a no-code platform.
Okay.
They're making AI accessible to everyone, not just tech wizards.
That's really impressive.
Right.
Giving anyone the power to build like a custom AI solution.
It's incredible.
Without having to write any code.
It's amazing. Yeah. And
that's wild. It opens up a ton of possibilities for smaller institutions that might not have the resources to develop their own AI solutions from scratch.
Totally.
So it's really cool.
It's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah. But with all this talk about AI, it makes you think about the data itself, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about financial information.
Right. Yeah.
That's incredibly sensitive.
Very sensitive.
How do they make sure that privacy is protected?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Especially when you're talking about working with multiple institutions.
Totally. And that takes us into this world of what's called federated learning.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
I have heard of it.
Okay.
But I don't really know how it works.
Okay, so imagine a network of banks.
Okay.
They all want to train their AI models on financial crime data.
Right.
But they obviously don't want to actually share the raw data itself.
Right, because that would be...
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Federated learning kind of allows them to do both. So walk me through this, because it does sound like, Star Trek a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
How can you train an AI without actually having access to the data?
Okay, so think of it like this.
Okay.
Instead of sharing their secret recipes, each bank basically lets their AI model cook with their own data.
Okay, right.
And then they only share the insights or the flavors that the AI has learned.
Okay.
Not the raw ingredients.
So each AI is learning from the network.
Yeah, exactly.
But not actually seeing what the other AIs are looking at.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like a win-win, right?
Right.
Banks get to build much more robust AI models by learning from a wider pool of data.
Right.
But they still get to maintain that really, really strict data privacy.
It makes sense.
It's something that Lucinity is actually very deeply involved in.
Yeah.
Particularly through their work with the Bank of International Settlements, or the BIS, on something called Project Aurora. Have you heard of this?
Project Aurora, yeah.
So,
it's a cool name.
Yeah.
What's that?
So Project Aurora was focused on using these privacy-enhancing technologies, like federated learning, to combat cross-border money laundering.
Right. Which is a huge problem because, criminals don't exactly follow, national borders.
No, they operate across borders.
Right.
So we need solutions that can keep up.
Right.
But they also need to safeguard privacy. And that was the whole point of Lucinity working with the BIS.
Okay.
Can we actually get banks around the world working together, pooling their knowledge, without
compromising
sensitive information?
So did it work? Did they have some success with Project Aurora?
Yeah, it was actually a resounding success.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it really proved that federated learning can be a very powerful tool in the fight against financial crime, especially on that global scale.
That makes sense.
But, any emerging technology, it still has
of course.
its challenges.
Right. It's not going to be perfect.
Right out of the gate.
Exactly.
Right.
Still hurdles to overcome.
It's still really cool to see this level of collaboration.
Yeah.
Because I feel like historically, financial institutions have not been super collaborative.
Very competitive.
Yeah, they've been very competitive.
Absolutely.
So it seems like AI is pushing them to work together a little bit more.
Totally. And that's one of the most exciting things about all of this.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about real-world impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Because, does all this cool tech actually translate
does that actually work
into results?
Yeah.
And the answer is a resounding yes.
Okay. Give me the highlights.
What are we talking about here?
Okay, so for example, their partnership with Visa Cross-Border Solutions.
Yeah.
By implementing Lucinity solutions, Visa has managed to save a staggering 5 hours.
5 hours?
5 hours per analyst every single day.
That's a lot of time.
That's huge, right?
What kind of impact does that have for a bank?
It's huge.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
That's 5 hours that analysts can now dedicate to more complex investigations.
All right.
Proactive risk assessments.
Right.
Or even just reducing their overall workload.
Yeah, or just like having a better
Exactly.
silly.
Right. A better work-life balance.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a win for the analyst, a win for the institution,
right,
and ultimately a win,
right,
for the good guys, in the fight against financial crime.
So that's one example. Visa 5 hours a day.
5 hours a day.
What else?
Another great example, their collaboration with Microsoft.
Yeah.
They're using Microsoft Azure OpenAI
Mm-hmm.
to boost the power of the Lucy AI copilot.
Okay.
And that partnership has led to some really remarkable results.
Okay.
Particularly when it comes to investigation times.
Okay. How much faster are we talking about?
We're talking a dramatic reduction in investigation times.
Okay.
From an average of 3 hours.
3 hours.
Down to 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
That just goes to show
That's why
the power of combining, this cutting edge AI with the scalability and speed of cloud computing.
It's not just about the AI itself.
Exactly.
It's about how it's actually implemented.
100%. It's about the implementation.
Right.
And I think, that highlights a really crucial point about what Lucinity is doing.
What's that?
They're not just building AI for the sake of building AI.
Right.
They're very laser focused on solving real world problems.
And delivering, tangible results.
That makes sense.
In the fight against financial crime.
It's not just a science experiment.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not a science experiment. Yeah.
It's really amazing to think that something as complex as, a financial crime investigation could be sped up that dramatically.
It really is. It speaks to the power of AI when it's actually applied thoughtfully.
Yeah.
Totally. To a specific problem.
It's not just like a magic wand.
Right.
So we covered a lot of ground here.
We did.
We talked about Lucinity's mission, making money good.
Right.
We talked about the AI copilot.
We
talked about federated learning, Project Aurora.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, but they're clearly doing some very cool stuff.
They're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
What stands out to you most about all of this?
Oh, that's a good question.
What's the one thing you want our listeners to really take away?
I think for me, it's the potential for this technology to shift from simply catching the criminals to actually preventing financial crime in the first place.
So instead of constantly playing catch up, we're now ahead of the game.
Right. And imagine a world where financial systems are so secure, so transparent. The criminal activity is almost impossible.
Yeah, it's
the ultimate vision.
It's like a utopian vision.
It is.
Of the financial system.
Totally. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And companies like Lucinity are kind of leading the charge there.
Well, that's a powerful thought to end on.
I think so.
And, it makes you wonder if AI can transform something as complex as this, what else is out there?
Totally.
What other industries and what other global challenges could really benefit from this?
Exactly.
That's something to think about.
It is.
That's something hopefully we'll continue to explore.
Yeah, for sure.
Right here on the Deep Dive. But
I'm excited to.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this little journey.
It was fun.
Into the world of AI and financial crime prevention.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
We hope you learned something new. We hope that, maybe had a couple aha moments.
Yeah, no, I did.
And walked away.
It gives you hope, right?
Feeling a little bit more optimistic about the future of money.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
But until next time, keep asking those big questions.
Please do.
And keep diving deep into the things that matter.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to the Nordic Venture Show. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more stories of innovation from the Nordics.